Hey everyone, another day, another project. Time to get started on this 69 Highboy. I got to get the chassis up in the air and see what it needs, so let's get after it. Well guys, I got the 69 Highboy pulled in the shop. This is the one I picked up in Colorado Springs, been a week and a half ago now. So I got it in the shop. I have the Harbor Blue 69 over there. Just got the engine dropped off at the machine shop, so we're waiting on that. Trying to get as many balls rolling as I can so I don't run out of stuff to do. Well, I'm never going to run out of stuff to do, but run out of progress I can make on stuff. So I'm trying to get as many parts ordered and everything here so I can continue working when I have time, like right now. So I'm going to get this chassis right now. I'm going to put it on the lift, and I'm going to pull the wheels and tires off of it and see what everything we need for the chassis goes. So we have a little bit of play here. I'm guessing it's wheel bearing. You don't know if the wheel bearing is loose or if we need to put wheel bearings in it. So I'm going to take those off, take the hubs off, and inspect the bearings and everything. And see if we need to order a set of wheel bearings and see what the brakes look like, see what kind of brake parts we need, because I don't know anything about anything on the chassis, if it's all been rebuilt or if it's not been touched since the last time the truck ran. So going to dig into that. I know for sure we're going to need wiper seals. So this is the big hub axle, so those wiper seals are really expensive. But I'm going to see mainly the front axle, see what we need there, and then the back axle here. It actually looks pretty fresh. It is a later model axle, so we might look at the BOM on the Dana 60 there and see if we can figure out what it came off of, or any other specs like that, and make sure it's 410 gears to match the front. But for now, I need to get this thing on the lift, and we'll just take a peek at the underside of it and get a good look at the frame and see what all the frame needs as far as getting restoration. So once I get that figured out, I can get parts ordered, and then probably pull this cab and bed off of here and pull the bumper off of here, and we'll get ready to start coating the frame because it's already stripped down. So I'm going to get this thing on the lift, and we'll get after it. Well, I got the truck pushed over here in front of the lift, and one thing I noticed when pushing it over here is it's really easy to push until it gets to a certain spot, and then it's real tight and hard to push. And I actually had to get the forklift over here to push it forward, even just on the concrete here. So one thing I'm gonna have to check is all the axles and the differentials, and make sure we don't have a tight bearing or a tight spot on the ring gear or something of that nature, because that was real odd. Or if there's brake parts dragging, but it's like soup. You could just push it with one finger. It's real easy to push, and then it get to a spot and you couldn't even hardly push it pulling on a tire or something. So I'm gonna have to check for a tight spot when I get it up in the air too. But this axle is like all cattywampus, because the leaf springs were, or the U-bolts were loose, and the axle moved, and plus that leaf spring broke. So stuff's kind of all janky right now. So that could be why it's being hard to push. But that being easy to push and hard to push kind of makes me think it's something with the axles. But gonna check all that out. Well, I did doing some digging on this here axle, and there's a lot of play in the wheel. If you can see that, but I think it's all on the wheel bearing, so I gotta get this off of here and check the wheel bearing. It can be in the knuckle here, the bearings under here and the kingpins. If those are wore out and have play, you'll see the whole ball moving, but that's not moving, and it's all on the wheel bearing. Same thing over here. This one's maybe a little worse. You can hear it knocking, but it's not moving up here. So wiper seals appear to be shot, but like I said, we'll put some new wiper seals on it. Gotta get this off of here and check the brakes. And on the back end, I mentioned it has a tight spot right there, and it gets through it, and then tight. But if you go back, it clicks, and you can spin it again. I think there's something in the brake in there that's either come apart or catching. So I'm gonna get the wheels off of this thing and check it out. Well, I got the wheel off and the brake rotor, or the drum rather, and checking out the wheel bearing here. You can see the play we have there, and the wheel nut is finger loose, so that would be our problem. These are a 3-piece wheel nut. Let's see if I can get it off of here without just getting covered in grease. This 3-piece wheel nut, there should be a, if I'm remembering right, there should be a locking tab for this piece, but it doesn't appear that we had the locking tab. So there's that piece. Then there's this inner ring here that's got a spline on it. Ooh. I'm just going to have to dig into it and get greasy. There's that piece. And this piece has all these holes on it. And it has a little tab there. There's a groove in the spindle right there, and that little tab goes in that groove. And then the third locking ring has a pin on it. And all these pins, you spin it around until it lines up with that groove, and you slide it on a pin. And then this other locking ring sandwiches on there and keeps it from coming off that pin. So you have multiple safeguards from keeping this inner nut from backing off. But I think it's just not tight. I want to tighten it up and see how the bearings feel. The grease in it looks clean. I'm guessing that's like gray grease and not black from being old. But I'll see. I'm going to tighten it up and see how it feels and see if I need to replace them. The brakes look pretty decent. The hardware on them seems pretty new. They've been used, obviously. They're not brand new. But the shoes are all in good shape, and the rotor, you can see here, or the drum, you see here it's got gray metal still. I think these were replaced not long ago. So that's good. We don't have to touch the brakes. The kingpin bearing seem to be good, and I'm just going to tighten this wheel bearing up and see how it feels. The lockout hubs, the bolts that held these bolts here, these weren't even remotely tight. So maybe everything was just kind of put together and not tightened up. I don't know why you'd put it together without tightening up the wheel bearing, but hopefully the wheel bearing's all right, and we won't even have to touch any of that stuff. But gonna work with that, and I'll let you guys know what I find. Well, I got both wheel bearings tightened back up. They are much tighter. They feel much better now. Of course, that brake drum's still loose, but they're tight, no play now, and they're not just sloppy loose, so those will be able to run a lot better, last a lot longer. I think this was, somebody rebuilt this axle not long ago, or at least the outer part, you know, wheel bearings, brakes, and everything. So probably in the early 2000s, earlier or closer when this thing was taken off the road. So I'm just going to leave this be unless I find a problem elsewhere. But for now, I'm going to put these hubs back on it. Probably going to change the lockout hubs to some different ones, but for now I'll put these in to keep everything clean, and we'll move on to other areas of the axle, or the other areas of the chassis. Well, I started on the back here trying to figure out that drag issue I was having. What I did there was first I jacked it up and spun the wheel, and you could feel it dragging. So then I decided to pull the axle so I could isolate it from one side to side, and two from the differential to the outside. So I pulled this axle first to give it a try, and luckily enough it was this end. So I pulled the axle out so it's not engaging the outer hub anymore, and then spun the drum, and it was still catching. So went over and tried that one, and that one spins free. Actually, I can show you here. It spins free. It's sitting on the ground now that I took the drum off over there, but that one spins free. So I went ahead and pulled the axle and pulled the hub and drum off of there, and that wheel bearing was just finger loose again. So whoever set up the wheel bearings on this did not get them tight enough. You shouldn't be able to just grab the wheel nut and just back it off like that. But I'm going to end up taking that one apart too, because I bet you the wheel bearing's loose on that one. But I didn't figure out why it was dragging, but it is all oily and greasy in there, so the wheel seal in there is probably leaking, and the shoes are all coated in oil. So I'll probably just get some new shoes and get those oil coated ones out of there, and clean this up real good and put a new wheel seal in it, and go from there. So so far it's going pretty good. Well guys, I think I found the problem here. Got the hub off of here and the brake drum off, and got to look at these brake shoes, and I think they are installed wrong. See how close the braking material is to the top up here, the end of the shoe, and they're both the same. If you go over here to the other side, and this is a lot farther away. See how farther away that is? This one is correct, and this one is incorrect. This is supposed to be on the front on the other side. Now I'm not a drum expert. I do a lot of disc brake stuff, but not a lot of drum stuff. But the one with the big the space between here should be over here, and this one should be on the back of that one. So they're not the same both sides. There is a front and a back, and whoever did the brakes on this just grabbed some and put them on, and they put both of the front ones over there and both of the back ones over here. And I guess that's causing a problem with it dragging over here, doing something like that. And plus this wheel seal was leaking, and they got all greasy. So I just got some new shoes. They're cheap enough. We get these greasy ones out of here. I'm going to put some new wheel seals on here, and get this drum all cleaned up, and then they'll work a lot better. So the hardware looks decent, so I didn't get a hardware kit. I think it's been, somebody did the brakes on this not too long ago. Same with the front. The front's pretty good shape as well. So I'm going to put some new shoes on this, and some new wheel. This one wasn't leaking, but I'm still going to put a new wheel seal on it, just since I have it apart, might as well. So I'm glad I found a problem there. The oil in this thing looked great. Someone had just changed the oil, so whoever was running this truck last was sure keeping up on maintenance, although it was installed incorrectly, but no damage was caused that I can see, so it's not that big of a deal. So glad to see that. So I think I'm going to cut this big old hitch off of here, because it's welded on this cross member here. So I'll have to cut this hitch off, and then I'm going to get the cab pulled off of here, and we'll start inspecting the rest of the frame, see what else we got to do, because my plan right now is to restore the chassis. We're going to get all the chassis restoration done, and hopefully by the time I get that done, we'll have one or two, hopefully that one as well, two of these trucks I've been working on done and sold and out of here, and then we'll move on to the paint and body for the body of this truck. But for now, we're just working on the chassis because I'm in a holding pattern for the other trucks, so I need something to work on. So we're going to work on this. So I'm going to get after, I'm going to pull this bumper off and the cab off, and I'll get after that. One thing I forgot to mention when I was telling you about this rear axle here, I did a little bit of just, general digging on the axle because I wanted to see what it was off of. Because it's not a 69 axle, because it just has regular bolts for the drive flange on the axle that bolts the axle to the hub. Just has regular bolts and a gasket. And the earlier trucks, like a 69 like this one they had these weird cone deals. I guess it was to locate the axle, and it had like a nut. It had a stud and a nut on the end versus a bolt. So this is a later model axle, and it was a two-wheel drive axle because it had, let's see, it has weld or marks right here from the shock absorber mount that was welded to the tube here, and someone welded it in right there for the Highboy shock mount. They moved the shock mount over, but I know it's a pre-75 axle since it has 16 spline axles in it. It has unless someone changed the axles and the center section, changed the gearing, I don't know. Has a limited slip on the rear end, confirm that, and it has 16 spline axles, so at least the axles in the center section are from pre-75, so 74 and below, and it doesn't have the oddball nuts. I don't know when they stopped that, so I can't exactly say when they started the bolts, if it was in 73 or if it was a little bit before, but I know 69s have them because my 69 has it. But anyway, just thought that was interesting that it has a 16 spline, and just doing a little bit of digging on the axle. I like trying to figure stuff out, figure that kind of stuff out, because it's just fun seeing all the little things and trying to figure it out. But anyway, that is it. That's all I got for you right now. Well, guys, I got the frame pulled off of the cab. The cab just sitting over there on the lift, and got my first good look at the frame. Everything looks pretty good, but we did run into some problems. The frame purchase for the cab mounts, they are rotted away, which is pretty common, sitting under that rubber. If it gets moisture or anything into there, it'll rot these away. These are not any better, sadly, which I wasn't expecting that, because he'd already had these off and sandblasted them, but I guess he wasn't too concerned with that. So I got to get this. Luckily, I had some some Highboy, external Highboy mounts tucked away, and we'll be able to use those for these. Should be good. Be able to replace those with these. This, I believe, is the same as a two-wheel drive. And one of my junk frames, I pulled it up to the shop and was getting ready to cut it off, and it still had the rubber on here, and then it looked the same underneath that, so I just carried that frame back out to the junk pile. The only other purchase I have are on complete frames, so I'm going to have to decide if I want to pull the purchase off of a good frame that I'm not really using, don't have a plan for, but it's still a complete frame, or just cut this out and fix it. But for now, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to take these off anyway before I coat the frame. I got frame coating on the way, so I can coat underneath those and get the frame all cleaned up. I got the brake shoes in and some new wheel seals for the rear axle. I'm going to get the rear axle. I'm going to get these leaf springs off of here and get this axle up on some jack stands where I can work on it, and I'll work on changing those shoes out and those wheel seals, and I will put it all back together, and then the rear axle will be done, except I need to replace the brake lines, which they're on order, and the diff cover there, it's got a big dent in it, so I'm going to change the diff cover out with a different one. But other than that, the rear axle should be ready to go. But I'm going to take the I'm going to get this frame out and take the front axle off and then coat the frame so I don't get any of the stuff on the axles. Then I'll paint the axles separate, and I'm going to get new leaf springs front and rear. There's nothing really wrong with these other than they're probably settled out from being 50 years old, so 53 now. Just going to get some new leaf springs for the front, and those will be all coated black, so we don't have to do anything with those. And new U-bolts, because these are all janky. But for now, I'm going to start working on this axle. Well, I got the axle up here on the jack stands, getting ready to change out the shoes on it, and got to looking, and I think I'm just going to replace those wheel cylinders, because I know, even though the hardware looks pretty new and everything, as soon as I put shoes on this thing and get it running and pump up the brakes, those things will start leaking, and I'll have to do it all over again. So they're cheap enough. I'm going to replace those while I have it apart. So I'm going to skip this because I don't have the wheel cylinders right at this moment. But wanted to point out the reason I know the hardware and stuff's pretty new. See that the retainer there that goes through the back plate, how it's got nice bright gold color on it. That means that hardware's been replaced at least semi-recently. I know this thing's been at least off the road since about 2004, so I guess recently is relative. I guess it hasn't been on the road, a lot. That's another reason that made me think I need to just replace these wheel cylinders, because it's been setting so long and those seals can dry up, and you start putting fluid to it and it'll start leaking. So anyway, just playing it safe and going to replace those. But for the meantime, I'm going to start working on the frame here. Right here, pretty common on these things is these bolts to get loose and it wallers out this hole. If you remember on the crew cab Highboy build, I had to weld in some washers here because we had the same problem. And it's only one hole on this frame. The other ones are good, but I got some weld-in washers. These are just made out of steel. You don't have to grind the zinc off them like you do a thick washer. But I'll weld these in and I'll put them on all sides just for continuity's sake. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start working on that, and I got to pull these perches off, and we'll get after it. Well, I got the welding all done. Got those weld washers in there. Didn't go too bad other than having to weld in awkward positions. But nice having those weld washers. You don't have to deal with like a regular washer. It has the zinc plating on it, and that just makes welding a pain. Plus, it's pretty dangerous with the fumes. Those weld washers are just bare steel. They weld awful nice. I got these external frame purchase here, the rear ones. I have them on the frame here because these things were stuck on there awful hard, and I ended up having to torch this one off. Tried to hit them off. You know, sometimes you can put a bolt in it and whack that bolt, and then the bottom just falls out. But these were corroded enough that they didn't want to do that, so I torched the center out. It fell right out. I still have to do that one, but you can see here this is a lot better shape than this one here. That one was deformed and egged out, and this one is not perfect, but that thickness there, you can tell it's still good, so that'll work. I still haven't got some front ones here, but what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna take these off, because I'm gonna take those off to coat the frame anyway. Gonna take those off, and I'll get the frame outside, and I gotta make sure I get it real clean. Some of it's sandblasted, but it's just dirty. You can see there's dust and stuff from when I hauled it home. There's some sandblasting sand still in there. So I'm gonna get this thing awful clean as I can get it. Still got some welds from that hitch to clean up right there. Some little stuff like that. And I'll prep this thing for coating. And I'll show you the stuff I'm doing that on the next episode. We'll have an own dedicated episode for coating this thing. So I'm going to get after that hopefully next week, or maybe the end of this week. This is only Tuesday. I might have time to do it. We will have to see. But I wanted to show you something on this cab, since I got this cab down here. If you've been following this build, I've been kind of going back and forth on what cab to use. I have that 69 cab I stripped down, and I'm kind of wanting to use that one because of how nice and rust-free it is, and doesn't have the repair, the body work this one does. This one's rust-free as well, but there's some issues with using that one that would make this one better. So wanted to show you guys, and kind of, it's, I guess give and take. There's problems with both areas, but the thing I wanted to show you was, if you remember, that other cab has the chrome trim around this. I want to make this truck a base model, so definitely no chrome trim. This little bitty piece right here on the drip rail, this little piece of metal that folds over, that truck with the chrome trim doesn't have that piece. So that's, I'd have to make something to go there. It has, if you remember, it had the chrome trim around this, so it has holes around here. And what else was wrong with it? I guess the back of the cab, it had the trim on the side, so there's holes right here in the cab, but you know, you can fill those. So kind of going back and forth. I'll just go out here and show it to you. Yeah, so here's these trim holes I was talking about, right there and down here, which you can fill those, I guess. Not that big of a deal. Right there is where that drip rail's missing. That I don't know what you call that, the seam there, and right here as well on the drip rail on both sides. Right there. And these doors, they have the dent in all the trim holes. So not sure I'll be using these doors. Probably those other doors in there. And oh, another thing that this cab has that it would have to be fixed is all of these holes around here for that, all those buttons that were around it. And you know, that's not that big of a deal. All those be welded, just time consuming. And this thing has a cargo light, which that Highboy did not have a cargo light. So depending on how authentic I want to get, that might decide what cab I use for me. And if I decide not to use this cab, I don't want to send it off to sandblasting, because I think we want to do that whenever I use it, so I don't have it sitting around with just some primer on it. And that stuff's not the best for weather resistance. And another thing with the bed, I don't think I'm going to use the bed, just for the fact that this side's been replaced and this stuff, see, this is even welded right there, and that welding down there wasn't that great on those ribs or those supports. Plus it has the wrong end cap on this side that hasn't been fixed. See, this side has the correct end cap, and that one was for the later one with the tail light. So and this right here is kind of crudely done because this has been replaced, I think. See, it's not welded there. Just stuff like that. Just not good enough for me anyway to use this bed. I found a couple that would work. I got to find an early bed because of the marker lights, but I found a couple that can work. So if I can get some found, that'll save me from having to fix all the issues with this bed. So moving quite right along with this Highboy build. Hopefully, since everything's stripped down, if I can get a bed and get the bed to sandblasting, I can get this thing to paint, and we can get the all the body panels and everything painted so I can start assembly. And once we do that, this thing will go pretty quick, I'm assuming, or I hope, anyway. And I want to have the chassis done while all this isn't paint or sandblasting. I want to have the chassis all done, engine rebuilt in the frame, transmission cleaned up, transfer case all cleaned up, drive shafts, brake lines, everything ready on the chassis. And then whenever the body and bed get back from paint, I can start assembly on it, and hopefully it'll just go all silky smooth. But we will be yet to see if that will happen, guys. Hit the subscribe button so you can see that when that happens. Hit the like button if you like this kind of video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.